Hello everyone, Joel here. After putting some Souls-like videos on my channel, I feel like it's time to introduce some amazing roguelite or roguelike games to you guys. Since the genre has been becoming more popular nowadays, I thought that some of you must have been trying to find some good roguelike games. Alright then, let's get started. The Last Stand Aftermath is a glorious return to form. It brings back the intense action and resources management, the incredible travel mechanics, varied environments, and the open-world exploration from the previous games. While it may not offer much in terms of substance and variety, the game's tense situations and relentless enemies will surely keep you entertained. Responding to a random YouTube comment, Danny defied the odds and actually made a great game that everyone is currently enjoying. If you are a big fan of roguelike survival games, then you will definitely have a blast grinding for hours in Muck. The game also provides a co-op features, means that you can play it with your friends. And guess what? It is actually free. So why not check it out? This fast-paced roguelike action RPG doesn't give you a lot of time to breathe when you are racing against time. But when you work together with friends to overcome its challenges, the tension can be rewarding. Triumphs of Midgard is very clearly intended to be a co-op game, and it definitely works much better when you can get a big squad with a clear plan and good communication. It's not like playing solo is impossible, but it's just too much for some casual players. Neon Abyss feels an awful lot like what will happen if you took the Binding of Isaac and spliced it with a run-and-gun shooter. The combat itself isn't quite as intense as some other roguelikes, but this Neon Abyss also has difficulty levels, which means you can tailor it a bit more to your own taste. The visual style of the game is incredibly colorful, but each enemy you fight and boss you come up against is equal parts cute and horrifying. The concept is fun, the bosses are generally quite funny to fight against, and the feeling you get when you've got an obscene weapon and a bunch of followers is excellent. For the King is a fun tabletop-inspired RPG that adds its own spark to the genre. With a lashing of roguelike inspirations, the board is randomly generated for every playthrough and you will be challenged even on a regular difficulty. The different rule sets means that For the King has a lot to offer players who are into board game adventures. If you enjoy roguelite as well as board games, then For the King is well worth checking out. BPM bullets per minute is addictive, deeply challenging, and equally as rewarding. It is by no means perfect, but what it lacks in visuals and polish, it makes up for with its rock-solid concept and spot-on fundamentals. A unique blend of genres, BPM's core elements mixed together to create a rhythm FPS roguelike in which players will shoot, reload, jump, and dash in time with an adrenaline-pumping hard rock soundtrack. Both FPS gameplay and the rhythm elements are executed near perfectly, which helps to make up for the game's average visual style and roguelike randomness. SYNTHETIK is an unforgiving shooter roguelike set in a world overrun by machines. Players will battle from floor to floor, defeating an array of enemies. The drop-in co-op is ideal for players who want to jump in and help smash some metalheads with their comrade. SYNTHETIK demands a lot from you, but if you're willing to rise to the challenge, the combat loop is incredibly addictive. Children of Morta is one of the most wonderful surprises. The progression system is newbie friendly that even a failed 20-minute run will yield tangible growth to make the next run easier. It makes those who aren't wholly into roguelites will be able to enjoy the gameplay and story. A 2-player co-op option is the cherry on top of this exquisitely crafted experience. Overall, Children of Morta is an absolute must-play for any roguelite fans. Faster Than Light is an immensely rewarding experience, and while you think the playthrough are going to be short, the difficulty is such that you might spend 5 or more hours with it before you finally beat it. The randomness of the game as a whole can be frustrating, but it largely makes up for these flaws through its intense combat and deep micromanagement options. The game's random nature makes that every playthrough will have a different experience and challenges which always gonna make you keep playing. As with all roguelike games, the key to getting better is in gradually learning the areas, enemy types, and bosses you might face in any given randomized run. This could sometimes lead into some horrendous experience, but Skul head-swapping mechanic manages to keep its grind sustainably fun even after dozens of hours of failure. While the straightforward bosses at the end of each area are one of the weaker elements of Skul, since they lack the same level of variety as the levels they oversee. But with the charming world and fun gameplay design, Skul the Hero Slayer is still an enjoyable experience for any roguelite fans. Rogue Legacy 2 is available in early access on Steam since August 2020. It's a roguelike in which the player guides generations of adventurers through a grand castle in search of fame and fortune, leaving behind a legacy for the next family member to take up the cause. The game feels more polished with great movement techniques and an updated art style that makes it look like a Saturday morning cartoon. Rogue Legacy 2 has taken the small details that made its predecessor great and gradually expanded upon them. You don't see many FPS roguelites, and within the first run, you can instantly see the potential. The graphics are simple yet effective, with easily achieving high frame rates while playing. The combat is easy to understand and everything in the game is surprisingly well explained. The roguelike's progression makes the game enjoyable even after doing a lot of run, and what makes it even better is you can play this game with your friends. Moonlighter is a smart twist or subversion of the hero formula. It brings the nice homely feeling of Stardew Valley as you upgrade the town and keep shop, but it also adds roguelike dungeon crawling with depth and tension as you balance the classic risk and reward. The gameplay loop also well designed as you can choose the length of your dungeon run and sell off the proceeds, gradually upgrading Will's equipment and the store itself. If you like either of the genres that go into making this game, you will find something to enjoy in Moonlighter. The supremely ambitious indie RPG Wildermyth aims to combine the best of storytelling with the best of roguelite mechanic. It surprisingly succeeds thanks to great writing, solid tactics, and some very clever design decisions. It may not look like much at a glance, but anyone interested in good stories in games should look deeper. Wildermyth also surprisingly flexible and tight under the hood, which all adds up to a truly special experience. At times, it seems like Griftlands is trying to see how many good design ideas it can stuff into itself without exploding. Although each campaign is relatively short and can be beaten in a few hours if you're good or lucky, the sheer replayability of Griftlands is staggering. There are tons of unlockables, modifiers, increased difficulties, and alternate game modes. It's kinda absurd that such diversity of mechanics work together in such harmony, but once you're bitten by their charms, it's quite hard to put Griftlands down. Crypt of the NecroDancer has one of the most ingenious game design twists you'll ever encounter. This dungeon crawler's gameplay is fundamentally tied to its music, making every encounter feels like a dance party. Of course, being a roguelike, the penalties for getting them wrong can be severe, and you can very quickly find yourself starting again. However, despite there's plenty of randomness, there's actually predictability within that randomness. Enemy movements follow the same rules each time, so defeating them is all about knowing the steps. If you want some fresh new mechanic in a roguelike, Crypt of the NecroDancer is definitely what you're searching for. Genre fusion can often be nothing more than a developer weird crazy idea, but Enter the Gungeon makes skillful use of the elements from both sides of its family tree. Roguelike elements are applied sparingly so as to complement the shooter gameplay rather than smother it. Each floor of the Gungeon is made up of a random configuration of handcrafted rooms, so everything feels well placed but not monotonous. And where other similar games can run out of novelty within a few hours, Enter the Gungeon is still surprising you with new implements of destructions even after 50 hours of play. Unlike other roguelikes, Risk of Rain 2 doesn't require many sacrificial choices. In Risk of Rain 2, your core weapons never change. You will at times need to decide what special attack you want to equip, but the majority of the upgrades you pick up along the way are additive, and gloriously, everything stacks. The lack of any strategic layer between the action can sometimes be exhausting, but nevertheless, it is still a good action roguelike experience. Nuclear Throne might not be a super complex game, but it is a compelling one. Its action is brutal, over the top, and rewarding with enough dynamic to keep you captivated for a longer playthrough. Despite its difficulty, Nuclear Throne is extremely accessible. Uncomplicated controls, a simplified leveling system, and clear goals makes it really easy for casual players to jump right in and know what they're doing. Whether you want to sink your time methodically or play in quick chaotic bursts, Nuclear Throne is an excellent choice either way. Permadeath of a character is one of the most extreme punishments a game can dole out. But in the Binding of Isaac, its hellish difficulty isn't a punishment, but an opportunity to see something totally new. Because of the excellent randomization and seemingly endless content, you are still seeing items, bosses, and entirely new types of dungeons even after 30 hours of intense twin-stick shooter style battle. Even when it slaps you down hard, starting again is always a treat, because you are likely to discover something new and darkly comedic. Darkest Dungeon is a grim and merciless tactical strategy game whose great tension comes from its many layers of complexity. The game requires you to do a lot of grinding, but a grind is only a bad thing when the act of playing becomes predictable and repetitive, which Darkest Dungeon never does. Brilliant narrative and stiff yet surprisingly expressive animation make it easy to be drawn into its vague but tantalizing world, though the end feels artificially out of reach. Slay the Spire takes some of the best parts of deck building games, roguelikes, and dungeon crawlers and mixes them into a wholly new and extremely satisfying package. It encourages experimentation, gives you time to make mistakes, and will challenge you immensely as you navigate your way through floor after floor of entertaining, puzzle-like fights. It's an idea so good that it's inspired a dozen games like it before it even left early access. It is executed so well that none of them even come close to matching it. Moth took its time and managed to deliver a masterpiece that improves upon its predecessor. Spelunky 2 takes everything that made the original great and expands upon each of those individual aspects without ever overcomplicating the elegant, retro simplicity of its 2D platforming. It doesn't do much to win over people who are not fans of the original's unforgiving difficulty, but for veterans or roguelike fans, Spelunky 2 is a game that you will be playing for a very long time. Hades nails the core elements of the roguelite: tight combat, meaningful customization, varied abilities that differentiate runs, and interesting progression. Over many runs, you get stronger and last longer and get different weapons to try out. Each individual run is shaped by the gods you meet and the things you choose when they offer you a handful of perks. Supergiant's games are known for their incredible art styles, and this one is no exception. Overall, Hades is a game that you surely don't want to miss. Dead Cells is rewarding in its flexibility. Each easily digestible run through its beautifully detailed and shifting levels instills a feeling of discovery. It encourages you to push the limits of your ability and mercilessly crushes you when you get too comfortable. There are layers of strategy and tactics buried not only in the immediate choices you make, but in the grander metagame each run builds toward. Whether you are a fan of the genre or not, Dead Cells is just an absolute must-play. Alright boys, I think that's it for today. I know there are other good roguelike or roguelite games that I don't put in here, so maybe you can share some good games that I miss in the comment section below. Don't forget to like the video and make sure to subscribe to the channel if you don't want to miss another great list. Thank you for watching and have a good day. Peace.